Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Alex Murdaugh and his paralegal. Now, she offers some of the most interesting insight, in my opinion, to the case because she was working with him through the boating accident. She was working with him after the alleged family assault incident. So she's been real close to Murdaugh in his work, in the work atmosphere at least, throughout. And she knows his normal behaviors as opposed to him being really stressed out. So we're going to go straight into Miss Annette Griswold. She's going to break down what she saw during that time and basically just his tendencies as a person. If you're new here, there's hella content. There's a bunch of different topics. And if you have a topic in mind, be sure to DM me. It's always down in the info. Let's hit it.
My name is Annette Griswold, Griswold.
Ms. Griswold, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Okay. If you would just tell the jury a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what you do for a living, please.
Okay. I grew up in Hampton, South Carolina, and lived there for the first 18 years of my life. Graduated from Wade Hampton High School. Went away for college at 18. Ended up falling in love with the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Over the next 2 decades, I spent most of that time in Charlotte. That's where I got married. And with the exception of a few years coming back to Hampton and a few years in Columbia for my husband to get his degree, that time was spent in Charlotte until 2012. My dad took ill and he wanted us to move closer to be near him, and my mom needed help taking care of him. So I moved home in 2012. After my father passed away a few months after, I went back on the job search, and I'd been out of work for 2 months helping my mom. So I was looking for a job and ran into my friend's father, and he told me I should probably check the law firm. I found out that I had a school friend that worked there, so I reached out to her, sent her my resume, and she forwarded it to the right people, and 3 interviews later, I was working for the firm.
All right, so basically she had the hookup, you know, she had some family issues, wasn't on the market, I guess, for work like that. Right after that, she, you know, you want to get back on the job. Boom, she had the hookup. That's the good thing about living in a small town, and I know it firsthand. Living in a small town, you know some people, you're pretty good to go, pretty much good to go. And government jobs, well, I don't know if a paralegal is a government job, but, you know, you get pretty good jobs.
He was more distant. Even when he was in the office, he was absent. It was hard to, he's always been hard to sit still and get answers from, and to sign our documents and anything that we had put in his office to sign. But it got extremely worse after the boat accident. He was rarely there, and when he was, the door was closed, and it was almost impossible for us to reach him. He was always on his phone. He was always dealing with something bigger than what we had.
Now, keep in mind, she calls this guy the Tasmanian devil. You know how that character acts? When he's in the office, he's just going here, going there, running around, you calling your name, needing this, needing that. So he's a very sporadic, just super super unorganized type of individual. And she said this basically just got worse. And he was very absent after the boating accident. But remember, after the accident, this wasn't really about Mallory Beach. This wasn't really about her. He didn't give a fuck about her. This was all about his finances and the amount of money he was going to have to show he was earning, and the inconsistencies that was on all these false bank accounts, just a whole bunch of money he was stealing from clients. Some crazy stuff right here.
What we had going on.
As time moved on into the early part of 2021, did that even get worse?
It did. He would come in lots of times, and he was just not his normal self, or what his normal self used to be. It was just very tense, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just, you could tell that it was the boat crash was weighing heavy on him.
I love how this all ties together. You know what I mean? Because she was like, oh yeah, it looked like the boat crash was really weighing heavy on him. Obviously, you know, he was trying to look out for Pawpaw so criminal charges didn't get Paul was not the issue. If anything, he was really pissed off and irritated at Paul for doing that. He probably got super grounded. And at that time, Alex was probably, really hard on Paul because he has to show all his financial statements to the lawyer who's now suing him, Mr. Tinsley. So this is why, the paralegal is seeing it from her perspective. This is why she's like, the door's always closed. Why is he all paranoid? Like, he's distant. He's never at work. He won't sign documents. Trust me, sweetheart, there's bigger things at foot for this man than some documents, than any case that he has on the books for this year. You know what I mean? That's why it's so insignificant to him.
And it was consuming his life almost, it seemed like, and he was just harder to reach. And there was a couple instances where I referred to him as having his ass on his shoulders because that's how I felt. It was disrespectful of me to feel that way and to say that out loud, but that's how I felt because
I like how she just puts a jab out on him just for no reason. Like, I don't know how this pertains to anything, but hey, say what you feel, sweetie.
he just wasn't himself with us anymore. He came in and it was just like yelled our names and
Being a dick.
and just didn't treat us the same way he did prior to the boat accident.
Was the
Damn.
defendant very protective about anyone going into his office?
He was. There was often times where he would come in on a Monday and say, "Who's been in my office?" And we'd be like, "I don't know, probably the cleaning ladies." We have no idea. He was, it was very cluttered, very unorganized.
Yo, the kid is paranoid, man. I should say the man is paranoid. He's out here. Remember, he's being sued. All this money he was, getting in, on the hush is now going to be shown. And it has to go through his boss before it goes to Tinsley. So if there was he was probably trying to figure out a way that, maybe he could doctor up some documents and send it straight to Tinsley and not have it reviewed. Or, he was trying to figure something out. That's why he was just on straight work mode, on straight ignore everybody else, do my own thing mode, close the door, don't go in my office.
But he said he knew where his stuff was, that it was organized in his way.
Jury's heard a lot of testimony about this, and just in the interest of time, I'm going to ask it this way. Over the years, in various cases, did the defendant ask you to put disbursements to Forge on various disbursement sheets so that settlement checks would be prepared from the trust account?
Now, keep in mind, Forge is this fake bank account that he made to put the embezzled money into. So every time they mention Forge, it's like something Alex created for that money. You know what I mean? And it seemed like he had a plan, but I don't know how you do this whole elaborate scheme, and it can all come crashing down if somebody audits your payment history or how.
Made out that way.
Yes, sir, he did. I can't remember when it started, but he told me, to put it on Forge. And me knowing Forge Consulting was a legitimate company, I would, on the disbursement sheet, I would put Forge Consulting. And he would say, "No, it's not Forge Consulting. If I wanted to be Forge Consulting, I would have told you Forge Consulting. I want it to be Forge." And I was like, "Well, I don't understand. Isn't the name of the company Forge Consulting?"
See what I mean? It's a company. That's what Forge is. I don't know. The boy was out here wilding. Like, maybe he was in process of making this look legit on the papers, and when Tinsley sued and when Paul crashed the boat, it just kind of rattled what he had in process. You know what I mean? Because you can't be that stupid to just, create a fake business and not have like a fully thought out plan. So.
And he told me that he described it to me. He said, "Think of it like Forge Consulting is the large company and Forge is a kind of under that umbrella of it." So he said Forge Consulting is the big name, and then you have all different things they do, including Forge, which is more like a savings account than.
Bullshit. I call cap. Even as the paralegal, I mean, that's your boss. I would still do it, but I would be like, that doesn't sound too right, Mr. Murdaugh, but okay. Like, come on now. That sounds fishy as hell.
and a trust.
So he would actually get you to change it from Forge Consulting to just Forge.
Forge.
Correct. Even when across the street at the accounts payable department, they would write the check out to Forge Consulting, lots of times I would have to reach out to them and say, hey, you wrote this to Forge Consulting, he says it needs to be Forge. And so lots of times they would have to change that.
Those checks that he would have on disbursement
Look
sheet.
at him looking around. This guy is a character, bro. There's nothing like him. The guy had balls. I'll give him that much. Real balls. He'll try anything. And hey, it was working. You know why? Because honestly, let's be real. Small town, big family name. You're doing your thing. You know, you're doing your thing. But at a certain point in time, you know, what happens in the dark comes to the light, my boy.
Needs to get cut, made out to Forge. Would he often talk to you about picking those up personally?
Yes, I would ask him if I could go ahead and mail it to Michael Gunn at Forge Consulting, because he was our contact. And he would say, no, you know what, I'm seeing Gunn this weekend. He's coming out to the farm, or we're going to meet halfway tonight and have dinner. He always said that he was going to hand deliver it. So I even got to where I would make file notes in my files, Alec took check to hand deliver, because I was so worried that he was going to lose these checks. Because he was, you know, a little aloof sometimes, and, you know, would leave keys in his vehicle, would misplace a few things. And so I
like how she's kind of showing who Alex Murdaugh is. You know what I mean? The guy is a wrecking ball. He's moving everywhere, just a complete mess. Like, to be honest, like I know some people like that. They're doing 5-6 things at once, 5 to 6 things at once all the time, and it's stressful just looking at them. And it has to be some type of OCD shit, man. I don't know, because like you just sometimes need to slow down and just do one thing at a time, bro. It's just life is one thing at a time, people. Now, the way she's talking, he was kind of loose. I could totally see that out of him for sure. With those eyes, with those beady eyes. Yeah.
so worried that these checks were going to get lost, and then we would have to do a stop payment and reissue the check. So I started making notes where I would remember that I didn't mail it, that it was actually hand delivered.
Well, hand delivered, at least from who was telling you it was going to be
That's
hand
correct.
delivered.
Yes.
Who was saying that?
Alec was.
All right, when you're talking about the defendant or Alec Murdaugh, do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point him out to the jury, please?
Yes, he's over in it looks like a navy blue jacket.
She got specific on him. A navy blue jacket. You see that frowning smirk right there? I feel like she was good to him, and he's kind of ashamed. So when she looks over there, he's just giving her that little smirk. You know what I mean? You could tell she was good to him. Yeah, the guy's down. The guy's not good, man. Look at Buster at the back. Always Buster. You gotta look out for this kid.
She's identified the defendant. You mentioned he would say that, I'm going to see Gunn, I'm meeting him halfway, we're going hunting, things like that. Tell the jury again, who's Michael Gunn?
Michael Gunn he's our contact. He's the person we talk to when it comes to trust annuities with Forge Consulting.
And that's the real Forge, correct?
That's correct,
Not the fake Forge.
not the fake Forge.
January 2021, did another incident happen that came to your attention as it related to disbursements?
Yes, the end of January, it was a Friday afternoon. I left early that day to take my mom to the eye doctor, and kind of the same scenario of kind of an exact repeat of December happened again. Nicole from Accounts Payable called me, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I've got another one." And so Christy had drafted a disbursement in a case referred to as Moore, and she had sent it over, and once again, it had the same wording and kind of confusion that the Hirschberger one had a month previous. So she didn't really understand it again. She was still trying to say, I feel like we need more information on this, and I said, I do too. And so kind of the same scenario as before, I reached out to Alec, he reached out to Nicole, and ultimately the checks got written. But it was the same scenario, as you can see on here, the $91,867.50 was attorney fees that were structured that went straight to Forge, to the fake.
So not only did he make a fake bank account, right? Because he's so smart. He's making a branch company off of the real Forge. Anyway, not only is he doing that, he's writing these obscure check payments to basically make people overpay. It seems like all this money going into that account, and people don't understand why, and then he has to call them and clarify it, and then get the check cut. The dude is out here going crazy.
What we now know was the fake Forge.
All right. And is that still in the Hirschberger matter you're talking
That's the
about?
Hirschberger one, and on the Thomas More one,
We'll get there in a second. But
okay.
When you got that call, do you remember where you were the second call?
Yeah, the Thomas More, I was at the eye doctor with my mom.
All right, I'm still on Hirschberger. Do you remember where you were on that
Oh,
second?
I was home. I'd had surgery and I was home recovering. Yeah, this is what we refer to now as the second Hirschberger disbursement. It was on the UIM portion of the case and liability portion. So once again, the PMP attorney's fees were routed to Forge in the amount of $83,333.33.
All right, thank you.
So I'm pretty sure the firm takes a cut of the money that you're making, but I don't know. It seemed like Alex was getting a percentage off of the client and taking it straight to his account. Just every last penny. I don't even know how you would do taxes on that. Did he have like a game plan for his taxes? Like, man, I'm sure he had a person for that too. But it shows how much he just did not care about the client. Like, lawyers are supposed to do it to help people. Like, this man does not care about anybody but himself and that money.
You had started to talk about Thomas More. Is that another incident that came to your attention as we're moving into early 2021?
Yes, sir. That one, like I said, was at the end of January. Once again, I was out of the office. I was at an eye doctor with my appointment with my mom. Got the call from Nicole. She said it's the same scenario. But this time it was all the funds that was in client's trust, which was $125,000, I believe, and all those funds were being routed. That was attorney fees and client money that was being routed to the fake Forge.
And this was another one of your cases, is that right?
It was. So another situation where I'm out of the office. It's almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. Christy drafts the disbursement. Alex signs it. They send it over in my absence.
When these instances are happening that you're describing to the...
I'm so slow. I didn't even realize that every time one of these instances happens, she's not there. Alex is specifically doing this when she's not there because I bet you he knows she's smart enough to catch these things. You know what I mean? Like, wait, all these fees to Forge this account again that we're already having issues with? She would ask questions. So he gets the other person who doesn't really know as much, I'm assuming, and just does it all there while she's not there.
Jury where you happen to be out of the office, and these are your cases, right?
That's correct.
And all of a sudden you're getting communications that the defendant is having Christie draft some disbursements. In any of these cases, was there anything going on that something happened and had to be done that very day that you just happened to be out of the office?
I didn't think so because, in particular, the Thomas More case, we were working on the third-party portion of the case, but there was also a workers' comp portion that another attorney was working on. And when you're working on a workers' comp case, if you settle the third party first, you can't disperse it until the workers' comp portion is taken care of because workers' comp always has a huge lien that you have to negotiate for the client. So the money was supposed to sit there. It was my understanding it would probably be sitting there another year until the workers' comp portion of the case was settled. So those funds.
But Alex said, nope. He was like, nah, bro, I need this money now. I need another Ford F-150 ASAP. You know what I mean? Like, man, he was out here stealing, bro, stealing his ass off. And Buster fucked it all up for him. So I could see him shooting Buster, to be honest. Like, not Buster, Papa. Paul fucked it all up for him. And I honestly could see him, getting to that point with Paul. Like, oh, you fucked everything up, Paul. Bang. Something like that. Because, like, it's becoming apparent at this point the reason he did this.
Didn't need to go anywhere, so it was very odd that all of a sudden they're all sent to Forge because they were supposed to remain in the account, was my understanding.
Do you take pride in the work that you do on these complex cases?
I do.
Do you know your cases very well?
I'd say I do.
And was there any reason of which you were aware that things had to be happening the day that they were?
I did. No, it definitely put up another yellow flag, and it made me think about the previous one that happened in Hirschberger in December, because both of them were kind of the same scenarios. Me out of the office, someone else drafting it, and not that we can't work in each other's files. We can, but it's easy to miss something if it's not your file. If I had to go in somebody else's file and draft a disbursement, I may not know that there's a lien or a certain promised medical bill or anything else that needs to be paid. So that's why, to me, it's easier if somebody that's worked the case actually drafts the disbursement, because they know all the deductions that have to come out.
And that would be kind of a red flag for me too, because why would you want to go into someone else's case file? Not even the fact that, you could miss something. That's a pain in the ass, especially if you don't know the case file. Like she said, you miss certain things by accident. You can cause delays in the case or in the certain payouts. Why would you want to bother with it? So that would have me like, okay, there's got to be some sort of personal interest, personal gain out of this.
Was the defendant using the opportunity of you being out of the office to push these things through?
Yes, in hindsight, it was easy to see that the chaos, the sending it over at 10 minutes before 5 p.m. was kind of a part of that little hurricane, a little tornado portion. Just sending it over when most people are gone, and it's just going to get done quickly and no questions asked.
You said that the Thomas More line was particularly unusual because it was workers' comp and those funds couldn't be dispersed yet, correct? To your understanding?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever have a conversation with the defendant about why these funds were dispersed?
I did, and he explained to me that he had gotten permission that since the money was going to be sitting there another year, that they were going to send it to Forge and let it draw interest, and then that would be money that would draw interest for the client as well as the firm, because it was both.
Nah, see, that sounds like personal gain, bro. That sounds like strictly personal gain. He took that money so that it could draw interest in another account. You don't draw interest on an account for somebody before the payout is even done. Like, come on. Does that make sense? No. After everybody's paid out, then you do your own thing. Or you come together and be like, oh, yeah, we could do this and put it into this account and make it draw interest. But not before the payout, and definitely not before the other half of it, the workers' comp that the other lawyer's working on. Not before that hasn't come in.
Both portions of the money.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence. It states 328. See if you recognize this document.
Yes, this is the Thomas More disbursement that I'm referring to, that where the entire client trust amount of $125,000.
Do you recognize the signature down at the bottom of the page?
I do. Alex signed it where it says R. Alexander Murdaugh, and then where the client's signature is, that is not the client's signature. It's Alex's handwriting.
You recognize this handwriting from working for him for 9 years?
I do.
Yeah. Look at his face. He's like, bitch, why are you snitching, man? You don't have to say all this. Oh my gosh. So he actually forged their signature? Come on, Alex. You could do better than that. You can do better than that, bro. He makes almost over $1 million a year. You couldn't go online and find somebody to actually really forge a signature better? Like, come on. I could do that. Like, come on now. Harpootlian is stressing, bro.
Did the defendant have a case going on around this time involving Mack trucks?
He did. What we refer to as the Ferris case. We actually went to Columbia and had a bench trial in that case in January of 21.
And did you work on that case to some extent?
I did.
Okay. Was that one of the ones assigned to you?
Yes.
Was the defendant the only lawyer on that case, or were there other lawyers?
No, there was 2 co-counsels that had brought us in. Wayne Ridgway was the first attorney that received that case. He reached out to Chris Wilson's office, and Chris joined the case as well, and then Chris reached out to our firm, and so now there's a third attorney, which was Alec, involved in it.
Ultimately, was that case tried before a judge?
It was bench trial, like I said, in January of 2021.
And did the judge issue a verdict in favor of the firm's clients?
Did, yes, sir. And the next month, I think sometime in February, we got a very nice verdict for the clients.
I think we're going to notice a trend here. We're going to notice something called Forge pop up real quick and some obscure messaging. We'll see, though. We'll find out. Maybe he's on the straight and narrow. Maybe he's doing right now.
Who is going to be dispersing the fees in that once the money came in? Is that going to be PMPED, or was it going to be the other attorney's
Chris
firm?
Wilson's office.
Had the firm PMPED, had it accrued costs in the course of that litigation?
Yes,
Expenses?
yes,
And did you prepare those and send those to Chris Wilson's office, or how did that work?
I did. I put the totals in an email and sent them to, Alec wanted me to send him the totals by email, and so that's what I did. And then I guess he sent them to Chris after that.
All right. And then after that happened, do you remember what month the money came in, roughly?
In May,
Well, let me slow you down. Once you've done that, when the money comes in, you said Chris Wilson's office is going to be handling that disbursement, correct?
correct.
What are you expecting to happen next?
I'm expecting copies of the settlement paperwork, copies of the disbursement sheets signed by the client, and I'm expecting 2 fee checks and 2 expense reimbursement checks, because there's 2 cases. It was a case for the deceased and a case for his wife, so I'm expecting 4 checks total.
All right. And you're about to say, and I cut you off, you said something happened in May. Did something happen related to the Ferris case in May?
Yes, I received by mail the settlement package from Chris Wilson's office, but all it contained was a cover letter and the 2 expense reimbursement checks. So I emailed Vicki Lyman, which is Chris Wilson's secretary, and said something like, "Hey girl, I got these expense checks in. When can I expect the attorney fee checks?" And she replied to my email telling me that, excuse me, "Hey friend, the attorney's got that money at disbursement." And I was really shocked because I didn't even know when the disbursement took place. I was never supplied copies of it or anything.
Yeah,
What's
so
your
Alex
thought
hiding
when you,
everything. Alex Murdaugh is hiding all that from her, specifically her, because he knows that she in particular is not a dummy. You know what I mean? And the fact that he couldn't figure something out to make her just not notice him is the reason why he's going deeper and deeper into his grave right now. Because again, she's not an idiot, and he knows that out of everyone in the office, she'll be the one to get him caught up.
When Vicki says that, what did you think may have happened?
Well, I called her and I said, you already gave the checks. I was like, I don't think we've received them. And she was like, yeah, they were done at disbursement in March. And so I asked her first to send me over copies of the disbursement sheets and where I could look at those. And then I reached out across to our accounts payable just to make sure that checks somehow bypassed me and went straight to into the client trust, to their department, and they told me no, that they didn't have any such checks.
Oh, she turned into Miss Detective real quick. She was like, no checks to me, no checks to accounts payable, but they were paid. Where did that money go? Oh, don't worry though, it's collecting interest. Don't worry about it. It's collecting interest somewhere. You might not see it ever, but just know it's collecting interest.
On the books either, and I was like, okay, so I assumed that they gave Alec the checks and he's lost them. They're misplaced, they're somewhere in his truck, they're somewhere in a file folder stuck, and
that's hilarious that him being a dodo bird in day-to-day life actually played in his favor for a little bit. That's hilarious.
just kind of hid away and he's forgotten to give them to me.
Say that to Vicki, like, come on, why'd you give them to my boss?
Why? I said, why would you do that? I was like, why would you give checks to the attorney? Why wouldn't you send them straight to me where I can get them in get them deposited.
I'm gonna put, it states 312, that's already in evidence, and this is the page, marked.
Stealing his ass off.
Fee checks that were missing. She was gonna go and talk to him about them that day, and so she asked me to let her know when he got into the office. So when he got to the office, I reached out to her to let her know.
And did she come up to your area?
She did, and we have open style offices, no doors on the secretary's offices. So she had to pass by me to get Alex's office. So I saw her when she was walking past.
Did she give you any look when she walked past?
She did. It was kind of just like that, just kind of a raised eyebrow, like wish me luck, here goes nothing kind of look. Like, I hope, because we were both just, like I said, wanting to get answers and
Get answers about what?
about those missing checks and figure out what was going on.
Where did she go after she gave you that look?
I heard Alex's doors closed, so I assumed in his office to talk to him.
This is what day?
This is June 7th, 2021.
The walls are closing, man. Check it out. The paralegals want to be lawyers, Every paralegal, behind the lawyer doing all that work, deep down, I feel like they kind of want to be lawyers, or think at the very least that it's really cool to be a lawyer and it's a really cool job. So they're going to be investigating, bro. And if you're over here doing some slipping shit, you should at least have your paralegal in on it, or just be better at it altogether, or just don't do it. Don't steal from your clients. That would be a good idea. That's the best thing to do. Just don't steal from your clients.
Did she come out after?
She did, and she didn't stop. She just hurried by my desk and she went on about her business.
Did you have any conversation yourself?
She was looking out by not stopping at the desk. If she stopped at my desk, that would imply that I knew something about her ambushing my boss. You know what I mean? Like, keep it pushing, sweetheart. That's what she did. Appreciate you.
About the Ferris fees with the defendant that day?
Don't recall having any discussion with him on that day. At that point, I turned, Jeannie had everything, and it was kind of in her hands.
What time do you think you left work that day?
I left at 5:15 that day.
Is that your normal time?
It's not. I typically work later. Alec always tend to work nights, and me and Christy tend to kind of adapt his schedule a little bit and work a little later than 5 o'clock. Most of the time, we were there till 5:30, 6 o'clock.
When you left the office on June 7th, 2021 at 5:15, was the defendant still there?
He was.
Did you go home? Eventually went home?
Yes.
Just a normal night?
Yeah, I went straight home that night.
Did that change at some point?
Yes, it definitely. My phone was on silence, and I slept through a bunch of text messages and calls. I woke up in the middle of the night, and my phone was just full, and I was like, what is going on? And so I'm looking through the text messages. They don't make a lot of sense. I see I have a voicemail message from Randy Murdaugh. And so I checked the voicemail, and I could tell he was upset and crying, and he said, Annette, please call me when you can. It doesn't matter what time. And so I don't remember what time it was, but it was sometime in the middle of the night, and I called him. And he told me.
Yeah, if you get that voicemail and it says it doesn't matter what time, best believe I'm hitting that immediately. But yeah, man, his little house of cards came crumbling down from that lawyer, from Tinsley suing him, to his paralegal noticing, what she calls yellow flags, to her noticing some fishy things with his accounts, it all came at the wrong time. I know he was trying to set that account up to look as legit as possible, and I know he wasn't done with it. But he got caught because his son, who was always drinking, decided to go crash a boat and kill his little girlfriend.
Well, when he answered the phone, he was upset, obviously, and I said, Randy, what's wrong? And he said, it's bad, Annette, it's real bad. And I said, oh no, Mr. Randolph passed, and he said, no, it's not Dad, it's Maggie and Paul. And I said, what? And he said, they've been shot and murdered. And I said, what? And it was just,
What?
it was very overwhelming. We both cried on the phone with each other, and you know, obviously the first thing I did was say, oh my God, how is Alec? You know, how is he? Is he okay? Where's Buster? Is Buster okay? I was very
Oh,
concerned.
Alec was home.
You know, I had a million thoughts running in my head. I was like, are you guys safe? You know, is this something aimed at the entire family? You know, and I was very, very worried about Alec and Buster and Randy and his family and the entire Murdaugh family. So it was very overwhelming.
Over the 9 years of working closely for the defendant, did you also get to know his family, Maggie and Paul and Buster?
I did.
Is this firm pretty tight-knit?
Yes.
Yeah, people, that's crazy. You know, the closest people to him, started to notice things before the public did. I'm pretty sure she knew he was doing something fishy by the time the second check came through, and you know, it's going to forge, and now he has to call these people to let them clear because he's giving them these fees that they don't understand, you know. And I remember when Mr. Waters asked Murdaugh, and you had to look them in the eye and lie to them, you know, all that. Like, he was out here just acting a fool. But anyways, people, this has been Mrs. Griswold, her testimony. We're going to get to the cross-examination of the defense next. Until then, everybody stay inside, stay safe. I love y'all. Appreciate all the support. Tell your auntie, your nephew, your niece. Hit the subscribe button. Well on the way to 5K. Peace, y'all.